Say you have a 520 STF or a 1040 STF that you love. It's awesome. But for some reason, you don't know why, the motherboard isn't working, logic board isn't working. And you tried your darndest to do various different repairs and haven't been able to get it to work. Or say, on the other hand, you're someone who would love to put an accelerator card in your Atari ST, but you're terrified of desoldering a CPU and what damage you might do to the board. Or the CPU is in a weird spot on the board, so you can't necessarily fit it in there. Or say you got jail bars in your video output and there's some various different noise in the system that's just causing random, issues of some sort. Well, what I have for you today is something that arrived in the mail. This is the Exos Phoenix H5. This is a redesigned Atari ST board by Exos, who's done a fantastic job incorporating all sorts of fixes, simplifying the board, and making it in such a way to modernize it. So you can take the chips on the old board, put it on here, and you're good to go. We're going to do a little introduction and start working on this guy. Let's get to it. All right, so there are plenty of videos looking at various different Amiga remake boards, whether it's for the Amiga 500, Amiga 600, Amiga 1200, 3000, blah, 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 blah. There are some fantastic boards that exist for the Amiga today, where you can take those old chips and put them and repurpose them on a new motherboard that'll last significantly longer. You mitigate and forego all the issues of the old motherboard, get some fixes in place, and you get rid of that nasty damage that you might have incurred to that board. There's one for the Atari ST, this one here. Now, why are there so many for the Amigas and so few for the Atari STs? I'm only one here. And why is this one, why don't you see more of these? A couple of reasons. I've got my own theories. There can be a lot of reasons behind it, but the primary reason I would suggest is the Atari STs and the STFs, they didn't use the surface mount electrolytic capacitors, number one, which is a prime source for damage to traces and damage to boards in the Amigas, especially the 600s, 1200s, 4000s, etc. Neither do they have, in most instances, a battery internally to them to cause, again, leakage and spewing out the garbage all over the board, causing distress and not so nice things to happen. These boards still, the Atari ST boards still have issues on occasion. And even if they still work, they may not work as well as they could, or as well as they did new. Or in some instances, this board actually fixes some things that were not so good when they came out originally, taking many decades of knowledge and learning and incorporating in this board here. So there's a lot of different reasons why that exists and why you've seen a whole lot more Amigas than you have Atari STs, but there's a place for this, and I'm just so excited to be able to actually get one, build it up, and get it working. I've had my eye on one for a couple years now, and have been wanting to find a reason to do that. And to be fair, I was following Exos on his board, his forum that he has, and he was mentioning that he may not create these in the future. Figured I needed to jump on it and grab one while he still has it. If there's lots of demand, I'm sure he'll start getting some more built and whatnot. But it's a great thing. I'm excited to start working on it. Let's go over a few of the details here. All right, looking at this and starting off with this, obviously the arrangement of the chips on the board is very different than what you have in a traditional Atari ST for a number of reasons. But in large part, this is something that I really like, are these various different bus I/O ports. These are perfect for using, adding various different add-on cards, accelerators, TOS decoders, etc., and allows for you to solder on a socket that's fully replaceable, which is fantastic. Additionally, as you can see on the board here, all the various chips are socketed. This is an amazing, absolutely awesome thing with the floppy drive, where you can just simply use a standard floppy connector. Rather than on most of the Atari ST boards, you have the floppy connector that's soldered directly to the board. Now, is that perfect? Is that, a big deal, tremendously big deal? Not necessarily. But the nice thing is you have that option. You have the option to have a blitter chip on here, if you can find a blitter chip. This is using a PLCC 68,000 CPU, which are easier to find and actually relatively inexpensive. Not that the 68,000, the candy bar style, are that hard to find. At least for me, I have quite a few extras. But that said, it's an option that you have here. And these, if you were to overclock the board in some way, shape, or form, you can get those CPUs actually running up to 32 megahertz in many instances. You have the MMU and the glue chips that you need to source from your board. Over here you have a dual TOS ROM that you can put in place here, so you can swap between multiple TOSes. It has all the standard ports or areas for the various standard ports. So you have the cartridge slot here. You have this right here would be the video connector. Cool thing about this is you can either use the standard DIN style connector for an Atari ST, so you can use an ST monitor, or this incorporates all the circuitry and everything needed in order to do an ST to VGA adapter, right? So if you have a monitor that's capable of accepting 50 kilohertz, you could actually just put a VGA connector on the back end here. Kind of cool. That's an option. I'm going to use a DIN style myself. Floppy port. You've got your various different ASCII ports. So you have the ASCII port here. You also have a modem and LPT port as well over there on the sides there. You have the option to actually add in a MIDI synth, which is super cool. That just plop it right in. You have the availability there. Looking at the RAM, see this here, 72 pin. You can actually use a nice little RAM. You don't have to solder in individual RAM chips or worry about various different RAM adapters in order to get this thing up to 4 megabytes. You put that in, boom, you got 4 megabytes right off the bat. As you can see from the board, fully dimension compatible with the Atari ST, the 520 STF, 1040 STF cases. Super cool. Oh, you got the MIDI ports over here as well. So lots and lots of opportunities for coolness here. Let me put a real-time clock in here. I mean, again, there's lots of various different opportunities for improvement here, or improvement over an existing Atari ST. One of the things I've found is that there's various different upgrades you can perform to the boards, adding pull-up resistors, blah, 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 in order to improve video output and in order to improve stability, reading from floppy drives, etc. And this takes all of that and puts it into a single board. Is this going to replace all my Atari STs? No. This is something I want, a project I want to run. And really, the one thing I'm really looking for here specifically is that my Terrible Fire TF536s, while I can get them to work really well with EmuTOS on my Mega ST and 520 ST, there are just some issues that I'm experiencing running just regular TOS 2.06 with it. I'm hoping that this might be an option and might be able to provide more stability there and can provide an interesting platform to play around with. All right, this is the Phoenix H5 board. Let's get to the next step. Now for the RAM socket. Get this guy placed in, flip her over, and solder it in. As long as I can get it to go in. There we go. And looks like we're good. we'll just tack down a couple of points on this little guy here. Zoom in. Let's shift you out a little bit. Ooh. One point here. One point here. Let's flip it over. Keep bumping stuff around here. Let's take a look, make sure it looks good. Looks good. Very interesting. Now for the fun part. Loads of soldering back to back. It'll be just fine. Okay. I'm going to have to move this over to the side. Otherwise, you're going to get my head in all the time. Let's just zoom in like this. Twist this around a little like that. And then hopefully my head won't be the most prominent thing in the video. And we are done with that. Now let's move on to the video output. 13-pin DIN connector here. And we'll wiggle it in place. And it fits nicely. Perfect. We'll do the same thing this time with this guy as well. Solder in a couple points first. And then adjust as needed. Zoom in here. Okay, got 2 points here. We are looking flush to the board. I think we're good. Not the best job. There's a couple of spots that could be better. So one of the parts that I didn't realize I forgot I had to put in is the crystal. What I'm going to do here is I'd like to socket this. rather than solder it in, just in case, you know, in the future I wanted to remove it. So what I'll do is I'll take out a few of these pins here on this socket, most of the pins except for 4 of them, and then go from there. Okay, here we go. We have a power supply, known working power supply plugged in. We got the monitor plugged in. We'll turn the volume up. If I get the blinking, clicking sound, we'll see if it works. Ready, set, go. That doesn't sound good. All right, I've updated a few more things on this board here. As you can see here, I now have the floppy power connector soldered in. This is the external floppy disk drive connector, ASCI port, RS-232 port. We've got all of the various chips in. I got the MFP over here. And I think we have it all. The one last thing to do, it looks like, is just this one link to disable the real-time clock for the time being. I may eventually put a real-time clock on this board, but for the moment, I want to get this booting, and all I need to do is just bridge those two pads, these two pads here. So we'll get that done and move on to the next steps of testing this thing out. Sure, we got the temperature up on the soldering iron and we're good to go. All right. It says use a wire link. I was thinking I could just bridge that with a blob of solder. I think that's a little too long to cover up. Okay, so this is what I've done is I've just simply taken a former leg of a resistor that I had lying around. We'll solder in one end and then just fold it over. Simple as that. We'll bend it over and then snip it off. Solder it down to this pad and we're good to go. I could have just soldered in a jumper, but I figure this will be quicker and easier. Also easy to remove later on. We'll do a quick continuity check. Make sure we got it and that I didn't connect anything else while I was at it. All right. Okay, we're good. Now for the test. Here we go. Time to try it out. Nothing. We don't have anything here. All right, let's see what we can do. So it didn't work last time. I realized there's one more thing I forgot. Actually, I didn't realize it. I went to Exos's forum, and since I don't have a flashy clock, I need to link these two points on the board. So what I have here is I have, let's see if we can get this in the picture, wherever it is. There it is. Just, oh, the rest of that leg that I had earlier. Just bent it over to be able to fit between those 2 points. We'll put it through and then solder it in place. Can always reverse it later if I wanted to. There we go. And we'll just get that guy soldered up. Perfect. There we go. Let's zoom back out. And we'll, where are those snips? Oh, there they are, the flush cutters, right here. There we go. And there we go. Look you over. Come on, all we need to do is get to boot this to boot. Now this is not a reflection on the board, all the extra rework I'm doing. That's a reflection of me not reading instructions, because to be frank, it's relatively straightforward, all the things that need to be done here, as long as you read. All right. So, if everything works, we'll hear the nice ringing sound of the keyboard not being connected. Oh! There's something funky with the sound, a little buzzing issue, but it is booting up. That is way better than it was before. Let's try a few other things. So what we have here is I've got the keyboard. I'll get this hooked up. And attached to the keyboard, I also have a joystick. I'm going to try to go for the gusto and see if I can't boot up a game. Plug that in. I have my GoTech right here. Boom. It is ready to plug in over here. Yeah, there we are. Flip it over. Plug in the power. Plug in this guy. And let's take a look. Let's see if we can get this to boot. Woohoo! We are booting into the GoTech. Let's see about pulling something up. Let's do sysinfo first. And we'll pick a lovely game like Wings of Death. Wings of Death. It's a good one. All right. Rebooting. We're booted into sysinfo. Let's take a look at this. Oh, there it is. It's a little slow. We're tossed at 104, 8 megahertz. Okay, we got 4 megabytes of RAM. Oh no, oh yeah, total TT RAM, there we go. Perfect, yeah, 2 megs in each bank. There we go, we are good. So what we're gonna do now is we are going to change it to Wings of Death. Let's back up here. The audio's got some little funkiness here, so I think there's going to be some fixes I'm going to try to put in place. Yeah, there's something going on. Not quite perfect. Let's start it up. It's okay. We're making progress, which is awesome. Yeah, it's missing some of the sound output. Not sure what. Or it's very quiet. But the game is playing fine. Okay, working. Okay. So in digging into the documentation of fixes for this board, there is, for audio specifically, as we saw for the previous segment, with the hissiness and such, what needs to take place, or at least has been recommended, is that a 1000 ohm resistor be placed between this point and this point, along with, that's this here, a 0.1 microfarad capacitor. So the two of these elements need to be put across this point to this point. So let me get things set up and I will get to soldering. Okay, so here we have the 1K ohm resistor here and the 0.1 microfarad capacitor. Let's see if that helps out. Let's get this reassembled. I'll power this on and then I will boot up Wings of Death. Let's do a quick reboot. Okay, let's see if the noise clears up as the game boots up. There's a little buzz in the background still. The sound is better. It's not perfect, but it's way better than it was. It's actually makes sense. All right. Much better. Way better than last time. All right, we are looking way better. I'm not playing as good as I was last time, but hey, the music is there, so it's sounding good. Okay, the next thing I want to try here is I actually want to try the Ultra Satan. Make sure that the hard disk capability is working properly. Let me get this. All right, perfect. There's a few other things, but let's go to this one next. All right, monitor on. Ultra Satan on. Still a little buzz. All right, we are in toss. This doesn't capture the teal background very well, but nonetheless, let's go here. Let's go to Gembench. Take a look at this guy. Good, good, good. Everything seems to be running well. Let's open just a standard Atari ST. Nope. I loaded an STE. Go. Perfect. We'll run the test and zoom through the end. Okay, we are basically about right where it should be with a standard Atari 1040 ST. 99, I mean, it's a hair off, but that's nothing to be worried about. All right, so the last test. This is the last thing here. We're going to exit out of here, and we have to boot up Ultima 4 because that is just what we do. Perfect. There we go. There we go. This should look just fine now this time. We got it. Sounds great. All right. I'll come back with a little bit of conclusion and summary, and we'll be done for the moment, at least. Be right back. So, what are my final thoughts? My final thoughts of this Phoenix H5 board. It's fantastic. It really is a fantastic way to get a modifiable, easily tweakable Atari ST motherboard put together. Is it original? Is it identical to the original? No, it's not. It actually incorporates a number of fixes that help to rectify some issues the original boards have with noise in the bus and whatnot. All right, how easy was it to put together? For me, it was hard because my wounds were self-inflicted by me not reading, right? Once I actually read through everything, the amount of soldering is pretty minimal, right? Virtually, I mean, very little soldering. It's 3-hole soldering, not really fine soldering for the most part. Pretty straightforward, pretty easy to put together. The sockets are all there. You just pop in the chips and solder in a few things and you're good to go, right? So it's not too hard to do. In my case, I still have a few things left to solder in. I've got the printer port. I've got the cartridge slot there. And a few other things I'd like to try out. I would like to put in this TOS decoder, as well as test out the Terrible Fire 536 that I have flash for Atari ST. See how it functions in there, right? All in all, I love this thing. Fantastic. Thank you, Chris Exos, and anyone else who has contributed to making this happen. Those who built the earlier versions and contributed on the forum to the various different fixes. Big thanks to everyone out there. The last thing, is this something that's absolutely needed? It's not as necessary in my mind as the Amiga 600, Amiga 1200, or even the Amiga 500 Plus motherboards. As I kind of mentioned at the beginning, those suffer from capacitor damage. They suffer from battery damage. And maybe this is just me in my experience. I've not come across a tremendous number of Atari ST boards that have been unrepairable. I've had 2 that have been unrepairable. One was something that I self-inflicted on myself. I did the damage myself, right? That was my own dumb fault for doing that, right? And the other one came to me, and for the life of me, I couldn't figure out what the issue is. All right, so 2 boards, right? I've worked on dozens of these. So is it absolutely necessary? No, but is this an awesome platform to play around with? Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for watching and sticking to the end. I'll have probably a couple other videos where I'm playing around with this some more in the future, but my thoughts on this, fantastic thing. If you need one, if you want a project to work on, this is the way to go. This is an awesome Atari ST project. All right. Have a fantastic day. See you later.